Hello, welcome back. Happy Monday. This is Faith Family Focus, where I am your co-host, Faith Suggs, former Duke women's basketball graduate and current CEO and founder of Brand by Faith, as well as marketing manager for SIG Sports. And this wonderful man next to me is my father, Schaefer Suggs, former NFL player with the New York Jets and the Cincinnati Bengals, and has also served as VP and on the executive board for the RPFPC, or also known to the locals as NFLPA Chicago chapter. Good morning, Dad. How are you?
Good morning, Faith. Wonderful, beautiful morning here in Chicago.
Yeah, it was cold. It's been cold recently. We have gotten some winter weather with the 14 to 13 degree lows this weekend. And it looks like we'll have a cloudy Thanksgiving. But as long as it's not raining and snowing, I will take it.
As long as you have your ham, you're okay. You reminded me that about 4 times this weekend. That if I don't bring the ham, there won't be a Thanksgiving. So
No, I'll just cancel it. What's the point of it if you can't? So if there's no ham, what's the point? It's ham, turkey. There's no in between, really. That's all I think.
Well, there's gonna be ham, and there's gonna be Cajun turkey. Ooh, yum! It's being thawed out right now. So, of course, my sweet potato pies. Right now, we're up to the quantity of 8.
Are you going to share your sweet potato pie recipe, or you just continue to make it a secret?
I am not going to share my sweet potato. You asked a question that you already knew the answer to. So, with that. For those who want the recipe for my sweet potato pie, please inquire, and I may consider.
He's taking orders for his sweet potato pies. I'm gonna put that amount of responsibility on his plate. He already is taking orders all week.
You get orders, okay?
Yeah, isn't that funny? Well, hold on. I wanted to also tell you. You know the Jets lost yesterday. Now you tell me what you thought about that finish. I know what you said about it.
I was traveling to pick up your. I didn't see the finish. All I know was tied 3-3, and I knew that the Patriots had the ball. And I, based off of my experience playing for the Patriots, and based off the last 14 games against the Patriots, I kind of knew what the ending of the score was going to be.
No, do you know how they scored?
No.
A punt return.
No. A punt return. Okay. Wow.
Uh-huh. That's why I figured you had noticed. It wasn't a
wow.
A nice finish for the.
It was a nice finish for them. My God, I didn't realize it was a punt, so I haven't had a chance.
Within seconds of the game.
That's heartbreaking.
Yeah, you know it's also heartbreaking when you're the person that didn't tackle him. See, there's the special teams and people that go out there, right, have a small responsibility to completely annihilate the other team so that when the defense gets on the field, they're somewhat, broken down. That's such a Jets moment. Like if I had an example of this season of like, oh, we were so close, this would be the example of the New York Jets. Good luck.
Wow.
Seasons of football. But
thanks for opening the show on such a high note for me. I knew they lost, but I didn't know how. So that's unfortunate.
Yeah. And I know you also have good news on the football front.
Exciting weekend. The Yale Bulldogs, Devin, and the Yale Bulldogs won the third outright. You see Devin in the back there cheesing. The third outright Ivy League championship in Yale football history. It's only been done 3 times. The last time it was done was 2016.
I think actually 19. It's sooner than you think, I think. Yeah.
No, it was outright. Now, I mean Ivy League championship.
Oh, yeah, because it's the Ivy League and they are allowed to tie.
Right. So let me say it again. The last time they had an outright championship, of course, my dear friend John Dady, who was a captain of the 1980 Bulldogs, won it outright. But as a result of them winning on Saturday and Penn beating Princeton on the final play of the game.
Upset.
Upset, yes.
Was not supposed to happen.
And Devin was sharing with me that they were all watching it in the locker room.
I saw a few cigars circling around the locker room. I saw a good time happening.
So if you know that stadium, Faith, the Harvard Stadium is the oldest concrete stadium in the world. It's like a coliseum, and the drop off from the stands to the field is almost 8 or 9 feet. And we could not figure out how those fans were getting onto that field. They were dropping off. Yeah, they were helping each other off.
You don't understand how they got down there.
Well, I do understand. They jumped. They sure did.
They had some liquid courage for sure, and they hopped on down. More like probably free fall over that ledge. It's funny, we had if you've been to Wallace Wade Stadium at Duke, it's just as old, but a little bit younger than Harvard.
Younger.
First Rose Bowls was held at the Wallace Wade Stadium, and it has the concrete surrounding as well. Now, I've never seen anybody try to go over the ledge though, so maybe we knew better. But all I'll say is this: I would definitely jump over a concrete ledge for a rivalry win. I mean, you could break a leg for something like that. I think it's worth it. It's the memory.
Apparently putting out cigars on the H in the middle of the field. Yeah, it was. So Devin said it was really. He said, "Did you get claustrophobic?" And he said a little bit, because as the more you didn't really know where you were, right? Because your surroundings were completely
by people.
Right. But it was a good. And then they had a chance to celebrate on the bus, and then a couple parties. And I guess some of the seniors to really really bring they actually went to the Yale Bowl and stayed until the sunset.
That's nice.
Yeah, pretty sentimental, So it's it's like one of the oldest rivalries, longest rivalries in football history. So
they say that it competes with Auburn, Alabama, like all those ones, but they say that because this one's so long standing and it has such history, that it is the best rivalry in college football. That's what they say. I was seeing that. The stadium was built in 1903, Dad.
Yeah.
From $100,000 donation. Imagine that. Stadium, you can build a stadium with $100,000 back then.
Right. Yeah.
In order for you to build a stadium, it's like $23 million, $30 million. Unbelievable. Very cool that they have not changed it. Probably just kept it, safe and up to standards. But I think that's a pretty neat win for sure. Historical.
Right. It was really neat. So great weekend. Devin's home for Thanksgiving. I can't wait for Thanksgiving Thursday. We're going to celebrate it as a family. So we have a lot to be grateful for, a lot to be thankful for, which is maybe some of the topics we'll talk about later in the show. But I just wanted to share that with the viewers. Most of them know that I posted it on Facebook, so the whole world knows that the Yale Bulldogs are the outright Ivy League champions for 2022. And apparently, because they are the outright, the rings will be white gold.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, because they're the outright champions. They'll be white gold. They'll be different than them sharing the conference, and the rings are supposed to be really big, really nice.
Yeah. The championship rings these days are at least like 2 fingers worth of width. It's different now. It is definitely different now. They spend a lot. I don't know if you saw, and obviously this is completely different levels, but I don't know if you saw the Golden State Warriors rings this year. They spun. So you could open it. It's the further rings here. And when you spin it, it has the jersey number, but when you spin it, it opens up to a little compartment that shows how many championships you've run. So Clay, Draymond, and Steph had 4, and then you could just spin it back, and then it kind of goes back, so it looks like it's back a bridge over a wall.
Oh, that's neat.
Unbelievable, yeah. So nowadays, they put down a few. They put down a few bucks there, so I'm sure he'll have a pretty nice one, especially since it's the Ivy League championship. That's a pretty prestigious accomplishment for sure.
So Good news. Yeah. So you shared a little bit about the NFL. What do you have? Yeah, there's
Um,
well started. Talk to us about college basketball because
so,
now you can just watch it. You know.
so last night or like yesterday afternoon, South Carolina went to Stanford and played them. Game went into overtime. They dedicated the game to raising awareness for Brittany Griner. So the coaches wore T-shirts with Brittany's face on it. I don't know if you know this, but Brittany Griner is still over there, and she's now been transported to a colony where she'll basically work at a labor camp. And no one knows where she is technically. So that's bad news, in the sense that we get to sit here and talk about Thanksgiving, but they did dedicate the game to just raising awareness. I don't think a lot of people realized that this was going on still. So pretty sad about that, but amazing basketball game. Of course, it was sold out. Viewership was off the charts.
You
South
said
Carolina.
viewership was very high in that game, right?
Yeah, because I mean, you look at two legendary coaches, two high level organizations, two of the best seniors right now available, and Haley Jones with Stanford and Aaliyah Boston with South Carolina. They say Aaliyah Boston is predicted to go number 1 this year. So Indiana Fever actually has the first pick for the WNBA draft. So she'll probably be in Indiana, which will be a good fit for her because Indiana is struggling to kind of pull their organization out the rut. And with the WNBA, if you can't get it together in 2-3 seasons, you're going to have some conversations about if there's still going to be an organization. You know, we've seen that happen a lot. So it's going to be interesting. I think this is a big get for Indiana. But overall, the game was pretty neat. South Carolina won in overtime. So, of course, it was exactly what we thought it was going to be. So a great game, good start to the top 25 matchups for this season for women's basketball. We've already seen a few good matchups with Michigan State played Gonzaga and they played Duke already. I'm trying to think who else. Kentucky played Duke, I think. I'm trying to remember. But overall, I don't know if you know this, but so Phil Knight, the man who created Nike, they always have the Phil Knight Classic for the men every year. This year, they'll have the Phil Knight Classic, including the women as well. So I think the matchups are UConn plays Duke. And I think Oregon's, of course, in it. You know why, because Nike. But I can't remember who their matchup is. But it'll be a pretty good game to see Duke play UConn in a tournament that has long held some of the most amazing programs and coaches over the years on the men's side. So it'll be pretty cool to finally see the women included on the same stage.
That is really neat.
Yeah. A really good investment in women's sports for sure. I think this season we're really going to see how coming off, I think the Las Vegas Aces kicked it off. They had an amazing run to the WNBA finals. And then the way that they had Vegas, you and I talked about this on the show, the way the fan base in Vegas completely set records on the Strip for a championship parade because we'd never seen it before. Now we're heading into women's basketball college season. So I'm really hoping that the viewership spikes like it has been for women's sports across not just, this country, but around the world. I'm very excited to see how it goes. I have no idea who's going to win the championship this year. South Carolina, of course, has Aaliyah Boston, and them winning last night's game was a big deal. Duke has been surprising me. They're not ranked, but they're 4-0. So I think their first test will be UConn. So we'll see. I don't know if Duke's beat UConn ever. So so we will see. We will see how that goes. They beat Tennessee.
Really strong, Faith. I was watching them play. They look really strong.
Yep. So we will see. It's been an interesting start to the basketball seasons. On the men's side, nobody knows. North Carolina's number 1, but I don't know. They got basically the whole team back in a way, but I just don't know if they'll be. I don't know about Duke. They're young. What's funny is we're so used to watching Duke basketball, having one and dones and having the Zion Williamsons and having, these amazing young athletes come in and then immediately leave. This team has one of those, right? They call him Flip. I think they're going kind of back to what Duke was, where they had the one good player and like a great group of solid core, maybe NBA, maybe not players, but they're well coached, and that'll help them, compete further into the season. I think that's kind of where we're at now. So it's very interesting to see them reinventing kind of their side of the organization as well, now that Coach K is no longer part of the program at all. So it's going to be interesting to kind of see who pulls it out this year on the men's and women's sides for college basketball, because I mean, it's kind of really anyone's game right now. There's nobody annihilating everybody. Of course, Gonzaga on the men's side is great, but that's just, because they have, what's his name? Mustache Man, or Timmy, with his hair and his headbands and stuff. So, I don't know if you know this, but on topic of NIL, he decided, think about this, the entire world of college sports has changed, because originally you go to school, you leave school, you graduate, you try to get to the NBA draft as early as possible, because they reward potential and athletic ability, and you can make more money, right? Well, we saw Timmy, instead of leaving his senior year to go to the NBA draft after the amazing year he had with Gonzaga, the last 2 amazing years with Gonzaga, he decided to stay in college for his COVID year. At the end of the day, he's making more money in college than he probably would his first or 2 years in the NBA, or trying to, find his place at the professional level. So we're kind of starting to see a very interesting dynamic play out for college sports and professional sports in that transition a little bit, because now agents can work with athletes in college. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, what's the rush now to get to the NBA unless you have the ability to be a starter or a top 5, top 10 lottery pick? So no, it's interesting. We're seeing people stay longer and longer and longer in college. Great players who we would encourage to leave stay, because they're like, well, we'll just make more money here than I will next year. So why not stay? So very interesting on his topic, because he actually is hosting a podcast. They created a podcast for him, and all he has to do is just show up, and he gets paid a lot of money. So
the NIL from the first show that we did right before they changed their ruling on it in California, what was 2 years ago when we started the first discussion of NIL. Now, has it evolved to where you thought it would ever be, or it's surpassed anything that you ever imagined in terms of the opportunities for amateur athletes?
Well, I think it's evolving the direction we thought it would. I think what we didn't know what happened was the amount of collectives that would be born. And a collective is when a group of boosters or former alums come in and create basically this pot of money that the athletes are paid from in order to, hop on a Zoom call, go to an autograph session, show up to a camp, little appearances like that. They'll get paid like $10,000 out of the collective pot. It's legal technically because it's not under the umbrella of the university. It's alums of the university creating these spaces for the athletes to advocate and grow awareness and market for the university legally. So I think that's the one thing people didn't expect coming, because now, okay, so you're saying all these alums of the university can work with the athletes, but you have actual professionals within the university with background and education in this space that could actually help them more than other people, let's say that, and they're not allowed to help because that's against the law. So it's been very interesting to see the direction the universities are trying to take, and the universities are kind of like, our hands are tied. But what people don't know is the universities are the NCAA. All of the athletic directors and assistant athletic directors are the one that sit on the board and make kind of the rules for the NCAA and have these conversations. So it's very interesting to see everyone kind of keep trying to push the responsibility of making the decisions for this. And because of that, which I understand, if I'm the AD at, let's say, Georgia, I'm not trying to, move or push the needle on something that is completely out of my control, nor do I want to open that bag of worms. So I'm going to try to let's see who else is going to make a rule, or let's see who else is going to do this. And I don't know if you saw, but the Notre Dame, they're now creating like these collectives that in some sort of way form as agencies and serve as agencies for the athletes. So like the athlete, Like, it's like, I want to get a deal. The collective is like, well, we have all this list of people you can work for. So it's all getting very confusing and jumbled up. And like, there's these 7 different, voices on the whole overall NIL experience happening. So if it goes the direction I was going, yeah, but it's like a runaway train. I don't know who's going to stop it or change it or, design the track.
Yeah, the last time we talked, you actually said 2 terms that I had not heard before: collectives.
Yeah,
and that's really interesting how the opportunities are being created. So you're saying, is it a group of alumni, or how? Talk to me a little bit about how that, because one, let me back up. Are the universities taking a proactive role in educating kids on NIL? Are there NIL compliance people within the universities now?
Yeah, they're hiring those. Michigan just hired a full-time position. Yeah, they're now creating positions that are compliance of NIL. Duke, the men hired a woman who has background in Nike, NCAA, like all these high-level positions, and her position title is general manager of Duke basketball. And so her responsibility is to basically give advice on NIL situations for the athletes, which is a loophole, obviously, to, navigating everything. But yeah, the term collective is basically, you have a child, they are a top recruit. Your schools are LSU, Notre Dame, Tennessee, right? Notre Dame's collective that was just created says, well, we can give you a signing bonus, a guaranteed, you'll bring in your first year $200,000, right? Then Tennessee comes in and they're like, well, our collective can give you $500,000, right? And then LSU comes in, they're like, well, we can't give you that, but we can do this, this, and this, right? So now the collectives are a way, honestly, the stronger your collective is, for some reason, now we're starting to see the stronger and more ammo you have going into the recruiting field.
So you have more resources to pull to sway a kid to come to the university.
Yeah.
Collectives. Now that's it. Actually, so the first time I heard that term was you just said it about 10 minutes ago.
Well, I said it on the last show.
Well, okay. Well,
you just said that. You said we talked about the last show.
No, we talked about it, but the term collective, I didn't know what that meant. So
yeah, I talked about it last show in the sense that that is now the direction of what we can't control. We can't control collectives right now. I mean, there's no rules or guidelines on them, so it's kind of like open season for these recruits and their families to kind of make decisions that will directly impact them their first year. And now, with the transfer portal and your ability to kind of revamp, where you go, it's a nice place to be right now.
Right.
As a high school and college athlete.
Right. No, for sure.
You are proactive with things.
Right. Well, it's interesting to see now as we approach the end of the season for football, how many collegiate athletes will play in the bowl games. I mean, we saw a trend of a few collegiate football players who did not want to play in the bowl games because they didn't want to jeopardize any chance of injury for the NFL draft.
Yeah.
But it's just really interesting how this whole collegiate athlete potential sponsorship is completely changing that between the portals, completely changing the landscape of college collegiate sports. I never even imagined that it would get to this point where now you actually have high school kids beginning to have that mindset.
Oh, yeah.
Going into college, right?
Yeah, it's always been, well, on the men's side, it's always been that way.
Okay.
It's just now that money's on the table. And it has like this facade of like, oh, it's for NIL, it's for this, right? Or like, here's the car dealership that's partnered with our collective.
Wow.
So there's ways to do that that's legal. At the end of the day, that's the whole point of what NIL is for, is to open those spaces for athletes to kind of do exactly that, and their families to do exactly that. So amateurism is out the window. The only thing that, they're not allowed to do still is market off of using the school's
logo,
usage rights and logo. And the reason behind that is just because people can't afford to pay for usage of the logo. But if you are willing to pay for it and pay for this, pay for that, the school will likely give it to you. That's just another thing people don't understand, is like, it's only illegal in the sense that because you can't afford to use their usage rights. But if I'm like, I want to use Duke on my merchandise for the season, I'm like, Duke, how much does it cost for me to use the likeness and merchant and all of that stuff? And they tell me I can do it technically. So that's another thing that's weird.
I wasn't aware of that. I wasn't.
Yeah, it's weird because you're like, what is the real rules and what's not, right? Like, what's the rules and what are things that we just don't know are the rules. So it's NIL is, like I said, open season. It is the wild, wild west of sports marketing.
Wow.
It's a fun place to be when you are a talented athlete, for sure. There was a few things that we wanted to talk about today that is actually a good transition from this point in the conversation we're having. Is now these young kids and athletes are getting more and more money, and they're getting more and more in a professional space. And that means that they have more things to be happy for and thankful for. I think one of the things we wanted to talk about as we're heading into Thanksgiving week as a family is like how you can show appreciation and highlight giving. But another thing I wanted to talk about was ways for you to shine light on the Indigenous culture this upcoming week, because we know the history of Thanksgiving isn't so grand and jolly. We've actually had the conversation multiple times where Thanksgiving to us is more along the lines of us being together and not celebrating the history of the holiday, but more celebrating the fact that we come together every year to be together and appreciate each other in comparison to appreciating the history of the United States of America and the Indigenous community. And I was able to pull a few ways that you can show appreciation and highlight the culture the best way this week as a family. And I know you probably never looked at this, but I think this is pretty neat. So 8 ways for you to celebrate Indigenous culture this Thanksgiving. 1, learn about whose land you're on. You can actually go on a website and look up like what tribes used to be on the very area you're in. And you can also find the local reservations that are still active in your area, especially in the Midwest. I know in Kansas, we had a few that we could actually go see. You don't want to go onto their reservation and impose on their space, but they oftentimes have museums or donation spaces where you can learn a little bit about what they have there in the history of their tribe. You can learn the real history of Thanksgiving. The colonizer kind, the side that isn't where they sat down and broke bread completely, but there was an imposing of their will and a taking of their land, and illness killed a lot of Indigenous people in this land and then moved them to the West and moved them out of their land in order for us to civilize this country as America. You can decolonize your dinner. And when I say that, it doesn't mean to take away all the yummy things that you normally eat, but maybe you can implement a simple recipe or go find a native grocery store. I promise you, they are very much in your state. You just have to learn about it. And their recipes are super, super, super healthy and super plant-based by pulling from ingredients that they can only grow on their reservations. That's a wonderful way for you to kind of, open your family's eyes to a different culture or something and build new traditions. You can listen to Indigenous voices, whether it's an audiobook, whether it's music. That's another thing that we might try this year. I actually thought was pretty cool. You can celebrate Native people and buy Native this holiday. So that's finding Native and Indigenous owned businesses, books, art, music, anything you can do to send money into that direction and continuously try to build up that culture the best way you can. And then another one is sharing positive representation of Native people. That would be sharing art, sharing children's books, adult books, movies, documentaries, just the same way that we share every other minority culture, this is one that's pretty neat because their history is literally America, North America's history of this country and where everything came from and how it was built. So they're actually a pretty neat history. And if you get a chance to, they have a lot of amazing children's books that do that just as well. And then, of course, ending racist Native American mascots in sports. So Seminoles, but they appreciate that. Of course, the Chiefs. We've had conversations about this multiple times. We just saw the Commanders no longer be the Redskins. Now we are happy about that situation. So I don't know. These are just ways for you to step outside of your normal box of comfort and maybe history of what you think the world is all about and what American history is, and actually implement someone else's culture and experiences and history into your life and find a way to educate people and your family during this Thanksgiving. I always like to share that one because sometimes it's easy for us to get blinded by the silly Pilgrim to Native American sit down dinner. Unfortunately, that didn't actually happen. And acknowledging that this culture has had years and years and years and years of discrimination and abuse. And for us to sit down as Thanksgiving as a family is an extreme blessing. And we can do our part by, I don't know, educating ourselves and having amazing, interesting conversations over the dinner table this year.
Yeah.
It's something, I mean, it's something new. Not a lot of us have background on it, you know? So I think that's a pretty one to highlight.
Well,
for sure.
It lends to the critical thinking theory in terms of we need to do a better job and quit pushing back on really what the history is. And
yeah,
and it just obviously allow people to get a really clear lens on why people who they are and how they think and why they the way they are. I mean, that's just so important. And fortunately, I didn't realize. So you said your history, your minor was African American history.
African and African American history. There's a big difference.
Yeah, there's a difference, and then so the distinguish. But that's pretty. And I was a history major too, and I think just being aware of as we go through these holidays, you know, I think it's so important, especially coming off the last 2 years, 3 years of our the challenge that we have in our country, that we continue to push that thinking in terms of allowing our Generation Z, right? Our Gen Z is really taking the lead.
Yeah.
We talked about that last week, and Gen Z is just doing a really good job of just constantly pushing that awareness. And I think eventually it will be a standard, you know, in terms of how we see our history.
Yeah. Because that's the thing a lot of the times, and this is something we're learning and learning and learning and learning, is that the history that we're being taught isn't always the truth, right? And so the best thing that we can do as not just historians, but just overall Americans is continuously try to reinvent the wheel with facts, right? So the facts are there was no Thanksgiving feast, right? No one broke bread, high-fived, loved each other, just in the fact this group came in and said, this is now our land. You will show us how to grow crops. You will show us how to hunt. And then we will enslave you. We will kill you. Or if our illnesses that we brought over from Europe don't kill you already, we will put you out. So it's a very unfortunate, dark turn to the idea of Thanksgiving. But when you really think about it, you're like, well, geez, it really lasted a long time, right? This history and this routine and tradition that we have. So the best way for you to do it is people don't know that history at all. But when you tell them, they're like, oh my goodness, really? And you're like, yes. And they're like, well, I still like to eat dinner. And like, yeah, it's cool. You can eat dinner, right? You're not the one killing people and moving them out and displacing them. And you know what I mean? You're not doing that. But it's the idea of what can I do to actually put an initiative into wanting to learn more about the history of people that don't look like me, right? Or don't come from where I come from. And people don't realize there's reservations in this country of many historical Native and Indigenous tribes that are still here and have museums and they have schools and they have, right? There's a lot of stuff going on. So in order for you to step outside of your comfort box of, you know, the simple way that history looks, to challenge yourself and challenge your family to learn more. And actually, it can really change how you live your day to day. And you never know, like, you know what I mean? Like, you donating coats for the winter to an indigenous tribe, or even just learning about the reservations that may be in your state are pretty neat. Because it's different,
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Faith.
Yeah. I mean, it's the truth about Thanksgiving. There was no feast. People know that. But just like slavery, just like the Holocaust, just like all these very, very hard times where we have displaced a group of people just because of what they look like, we should continuously try to tell that story so it doesn't happen again, but also so you can educate on the very culture that you're displacing. That's
really good.
Yeah. So now let's twist Thanksgiving to more now a happy side of things, even though that Thanksgiving and educating yourself in other culture, it can be happy. We wanted to talk about ways to like show appreciation for this Thanksgiving, the best way to show gratitude. We actually have had a show, I think 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago about this, but we saw a few videos, one with Oprah, really breaking down what gratitude means to her and how you can show simple pieces of gratitude. But I wanted to also show you the list of 5 ways you can show gratitude and why those are really positive for your mental health going into holiday season. So 5 ways to show appreciation. A gratitude journal. Tell someone that you appreciate them. Think of one thing you like about yourself. Reduce judgment of others and yourself. And practice mindfulness. Which one's your favorite, Em?
Wow. I like all of them equally. I mean, I think the reducing judgment is really something that we really have to. They say you be mindful, but really, really be really conscious of.
Yeah.
I think especially during this time, just having a level of tolerance and empathy is so important these days with so many things that are happening. I like all of them. How about you?
I think for me, it's judgment. I think right now in today's society, update on Twitter, it's still operating. I think one of the ways that we see is we have so much accessibility and visibility towards everybody's lives and everybody's opinions and everybody's right. So like it's almost as like because we now have access to everybody's lives, we have the ability to give our opinions to everybody. And sometimes we forget that our opinion isn't an opinion; it's also a form of judgment, and it's hurtful. And I think you hit on the head in the sense that where did empathy go? I think empathy is so important as human beings, and also the understanding that your way isn't the only way. And I think your best way to show appreciation and gratitude towards life and this whole overall experience you have on earth is to mind your own business. You know what I mean? In the nicest way possible. Like if someone raises their child differently than you, but they're still safe, they're still healthy, they're still having an amazing experience, that's not on you to impose what you think is right on their lives, right? I think it goes with that. Also, how people are educated, where a person works, what their socioeconomic status is, what their sexual orientation and gender orientation is. There's so many different ways that create us all as individuals that are so beautiful and unique. I think the best way for you to show appreciation is really diving down within yourself and finding empathy for everyone and understanding that their path on earth is just that, their path. And to be supporting goes a long way. I think that's my biggest thing is like not allowing judgment to like rule your life every single day of your life. And that's hard, right? Like it's very easy to judge people. It's very hard to not judge people.
And there's so many media outlets, social media outlets and TV outlets that validate your judgment.
Yeah.
You find
somebody agrees with you.
Somebody that agree with you, some outlet that agree with you. And in most cases, your judgment is a result of you watching and listening to the things that you just don't really, I mean, we look at things, but we don't really want to drill into the resource or the source of where it comes from, right?
Yeah.
It validates maybe some of the ignorance that you already have.
Yeah.
you know, and it's like a virus. It continues to grow, you know.
Yeah.
No, I like that. So judgment is really, really important. You know, if you don't mind, if you do you want to touch on a couple more of those? Because I wanted to
Yeah.
a couple of quotes that I really pulled up that were really from Tony Robbins. There's one from Oprah, John F. Kennedy. But
Go ahead on the Tony Robbins one because that's my favorite.
yeah. He said, when you are grateful, fear disappears and abundance appears.
Right. And you got to break down, what does abundance mean? Right? Like, what
Uh,
exactly are you looking for? Abundance is a great thing to look for. And in the, I think that fear and abundance are on two different sides of the spectrum. I think people are like, no, it should be bravery. No, abundance is what you want to kind of look for. It's like, let me find the actual.
it's not necessarily material abundance, it's
Right.
spiritual abundance, it's emotional abundance.
It's being allowing yourself to be overwhelmed by everything
Yeah.
in the unknown, right? Like sometimes people are afraid of the unknown. People are afraid of receiving their blessings too quickly,
Yeah.
like getting that job promotion, and all of a sudden they're like, I don't know if I can do it. Well, you just prayed for it. You
Right.
have prayed for this promotion. You have prayed for this opportunity. You have prayed for this season. So I think that one of the things is that when you are grateful for your experience, we said this the other day, when you're grateful for your journey, abundance almost seems like it's mine. I already deserve that
Mhm.
because I am grateful for it. I have created a space in my life for me to receive it. There is no room for fear.
Right. Here's the second one. This is really good. There's a podcast that he does on this. But trade your expectations for appreciation and your world will change in an instant.
Yeah.
Trade your expectations for appreciation and your whole world changes in an instant. That was really good.
Yeah.
Oprah Winfrey quote, I started out giving thanks for small things. And the more thankful I became, the more my bounty increased.
A lot of these keep coming back to the fact that you got to make space in your own life using gratitude.
Yeah.
Like allowing yourself to receive great things.
Right.
And allowing yourself to understand that those great things don't belong to you, but instead they're just another opportunity for you to receive in your next season, and you should be thankful. And I like that. Appreciation, I really think is the moment, the one, if someone, an alien came from outer space and was like, what's the one thing I should have as a human being that'll make me a human? I think appreciation and gratitude. Because that, when you're appreciative, you have empathy. When you're appreciative, you don't judge. When you're appreciative, you don't even feel the need to lie, right? Because you're so comfortable in your own journey, your own book, that you are literally living from such a peaceful place.
Yeah. John F. Kennedy quotes, as we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter words, but to live by them.
Yeah.
Anne Frank, no one has ever become poor by giving. And here's the last one that I quote Maya Angelou, be present in all things and be thankful for all.
Yeah, be where your feet are.
Yeah.
Be where your feet are. I think that's a big deal in all of life. It's like to be where your feet are in every single second you have on earth. Like, have you ever watched a TV show and the TV show ends and you're like, what the heck was that TV show on? What was that episode on? The episode just flew by because either you're on your phone or you're on your computer or you're talking to someone, right? That's the same thing about seasons in your life, right? Like sometimes, and Devin and I have had conversations about that. Sometimes life is so hard, it's so taxing and so like busybody, right? And you're running from here to here that sometimes you're so in a rush to just get to the end result, to get to like the final graduation or the wedding is over or all those big moments that you thought you'd look forward to, but in the process you're like, God, I'm so tired, I'm doing this, I'm doing that you forget to appreciate where your feet are in the moment and you miss out on the memories being made in the process.
Yeah.
I think like that's a big thing. It's like to be where your feet are and appreciate the grass you're standing on instead of worrying about what someone else's grass looks like is the biggest skill and character building tool that you can have in your toolbox.
Yeah. You know, I can say this. Hopefully, I don't get too emotional, but I'm so grateful for you and Devin. I'm so grateful for the first time I held you in your eyes and you looked at me and you looking at me the same way today. And I'm so grateful for the young lady that you have become. And I'm so grateful for the woman that you will be and all of the opportunities I've had over the last 11 years to watch you grow and all the milestones. You know, I'm so grateful for being present and being able to appreciate those because the fear of what I had to have, what was before me, was so was that was fearful. But then becoming grateful and having enough faith to know that I would get through it. You know, the fact that you are now in a place in your life where you're going to be married one day. You know, I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be able to walk you up the aisle those days. I mean, I have so much to be grateful for. I'm so grateful for, you know, I mean, I'm watching my son at Yale. I mean, there's so much. Well, as a parent, even though there's no playbook to raising a child, I mean, there's so much that you guys have given me to be grateful for. And I just wanted to say that, you know, and I'm so grateful for that you are going to host your first Thanksgiving dinner.
It's definitely my third Thanksgiving I'm hosting.
You have your own families.
This is the first Thanksgiving I'm hosting where you'll be there. Yes.
Right, exactly. That's what I meant. So
yes. No, I see you. I hear you. I think one of the biggest things in life is like, how many times do you wake up and you're like, thank you, God, I'm here? Right? Like the fact that you got to wake up is the crazy, because if you think about it, you know, those stories and feeling like conversations of people and you hear like, how did so-and-so die? And you're like, well, they were just going to the grocery store, right? They're right down the street, or they died in their sleep, passed in their sleep. And you're just like, gosh, imagine that. Just not waking up. Right. And I got to do that today. And I didn't even put any effort into waking up. Right. Something did that for me. So I think that when you bring it down to square root number one, right, is like, I'm just so thankful to be here. I'm so thankful that my life has evolved into the point it has. Right. And when you do that, it's almost like you are appreciating things a little more. You appreciate the weather. You appreciate your home. You appreciate the food. You appreciate family. You appreciate that you get to you drive places and not bike. You appreciate that you bike places and don't walk. Appreciate that you can walk. You know what I mean? There's many levels to what you can be appreciative, which everybody can be appreciative for something because they're alive. And I think that that's such a special way to look at things and really show appreciation this week. Other than educating yourself on Indigenous people's culture, also showing appreciation to the very fact that you get to celebrate family and being around people and have actual food, right? You went to the grocery store and you were like, I'm just going to get this because I can, right? There's a mentality. Some people are like, I'll get the extra box of noodles because I can. Well, some people are looking for that turkey this season. Some people are looking for, right? There's just ways for you to really look inside and be like, gosh, I am so appreciative of the life that I have built and has been gifted to me. So yeah, that's the point of Thanksgiving right there.
Yeah.
To appreciate what you are doing, not what the Pilgrims did.
I'm appreciative of both my kids are having a contest on who makes the best mac and cheese.
It's the same recipe.
The same recipe, right?
He hand grates his cheese and uses a different version of cheese.
So exciting. I can't wait. Well, great show, Faith. Thank you for sharing, bringing gratitude to our viewers. We have so much to be grateful for. And it's just, every year that goes by for me, it's truly amazing how we can find so much.
Yes.
Just giving and sharing, and just viewers, take time to spend and be present with your family. Forget about the past. Just be present with your family because life is so short.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And appreciate the nice weather. Get outside, look around, appreciate what the world looks like. I read a quote this morning. This did close us out. It said, "How is hold on, I have it right here. How strange that nature does not knock and yet does not intrude." Right? I think that's another way for you to show appreciation, is just stand out and be in the sun and be appreciative of the fact that, wow, this world is really laid out for us. So again, thank you everyone for joining us on Faith Family Focus, where we want to use our faith as a vehicle to help strengthen us and stay in the family core of our views around us. And of course, ours logo.
Let go, let God, let go, let faith, and let go, let love.
Everyone have a wonderful week. Have a nice holiday.
Thanks, Dave.